Hi everybody, Karen here from tuppencecoloured.co.uk. Thank you very much for joining me, and this is what I've been making today. Bit of a change from the usual card and paper craft projects, so stay with me and I'll show you what I did. I've stamped out the turtle onto some tissue paper and I've already started colouring him using some soft saffron, I think it was, from the I've stamped out the turtle onto some tissue paper and I've used my black archival ink, and I've started colouring him on the reverse with So Saffron marker, and I've got a picture here to use for reference, and I'm going to go ahead and do some more colouring. So I think I'm going to start with some old olive. I think that for my purposes I'm happy with that. So the next step, put my tablet out of the way, is I have some white acrylic paint and a fine paintbrush, and I'm just going to coat the back of the drawing with white acrylic, and I'm doing this to seal in the colours. Now, for this particular image, I'm really not too bothered if the colours kind of run into one another, because I want them to sort of blend and run, but I am working from the lighter colour into the darker colour where I want the highlights to be, because that way I'm hoping that I won't contaminate my darker colour. And if you're a better colourer innerer than I am, just take your time over it. And get a good result. Now what this is doing, it's doing two things. First of all, it's sealing the colour in so that when I apply a layer of adhesive or sealer or whatever, the colour isn't going to move anymore. The colours are going to stay where they are now. And the other thing is that it is going to make it opaque. So this bit is going to be opaque, but the tissue, once we cut it away and treat it, is going to be much more translucent. So that needs to be left to dry. Now I've also been doing some other stamps with the same stamp set, and one of the images that I've been stamping out has been the lighthouse. Now I've stamped the lighthouse in I've coloured the lighthouse, the stripes on the lighthouse in red, in real red, and I definitely don't want that colour bleeding into the next stripe to it, because that is going to be pure white. So what I have done is I have just coloured in the back sorry, I'm working on the back of the lighthouse again, and I just painted just the red stripe. And then when that dries, when you see it's tinting the acrylic, it's tinting it pink. So that when that dries, it will be sealed off from the rest of the stamped image, so that I will go back over it with the white acrylic, and this one is now dry, so I can show you that one. We put this one to one side, and I can go back over with white acrylic and not contaminate the colours. Now I'll put some smoky slate along here to give some shade. Well, that's fine. And along the bottom of the lighthouse, that's also had some smoky slate. And up at the top here. Oops. So I can now go right over the back of this lighthouse, and my white will not turn pink. This is a stone coaster, came in a pack of 4, but you could use a nice flat stone that you picked up at the beach. That would work well. And I have ordinary white acrylic paint in my palette here, and I'm going to put in a few drops of Tempting Turquoise, re-inker, and also some Bermuda Bay. And I've got washing up sponges, because I can just throw these away when I'm finished, and they are cheap as chips. So I'm going to begin by picking up some of the Tempting Turquoise and adding it into my white acrylic. And a bit more. And what I'm doing is I'm creating my own shade of paint that will be a tint of the base colour. So I'm making it, and I'm kind of liking that look, so I'm just going to dab that as it is onto my coaster. Now, ahead of time I did give it a very, very light coat of white gesso, just to seal it a bit. But actually I don't really think that this actually needed it, and that is looking nice and sea-like. So I'm going to pick up some more of the Tempting Turquoise, and to change over, I'll put some Bermuda Bay in here as well. Okay, that's quite strong, so I'm going to pick up some of the white paint, and I'm just playing. Until I've got a look and a colour that I like. Okay, a bit more white, I think. And a little bit more darker colour around the edge. Just playing until I get an effect I like, and I'm getting quite close to it now. And I think the time is coming when I'm just going to say to step away from the coaster. I'm just going to put some darker colour around the edges here, just to give some dimension. Just go back to my other sponge and just work it. I am now going to let that dry. My coaster's had a chance to dry, and I've decided that I want to distress the edge a bit. So I've got a sanding block, and I'm just going to sand around the edges here. And there we go, I'm happy with the way that now looks. I'm ready to apply my image, and I'm going to be using this lovely turtle. I want him to look like he's swimming through the sea. And I'm using Studio Matte Multi-Medium in matte. You use whatever you have handy. Okay, Mod Podge would do. Normally for this kind of thing I use floor polish. I use my Pledge multi-surface wax, but I want a matte surface on this, and the Pledge will the Pledge will dry with a what's the word, glossy, well, it's sort of a satiny finish, and I don't want it on this. So I'm just starting this off, and the ink is re-wetting for some reason. I didn't think that would happen, but I'm not too bothered, because of course on the back of my tissue paper I have coated it in white acrylic, so that is going to make it opaque, and it's also going to keep the inks from running into one another. So I'm just going to put a little bit more medium all over the top of my image, and just to seal it into place very lightly. And I know what's happening. I was wondering why the colour was reactivating, and of course it's because in some parts I didn't mix the colour all of the way into the acrylic paint, so those little dabs of re-inker have reactivated with the multi-medium. So you know, I'm happy with that. I'm going to let that dry. Now, if you've never seen this before, it is so easy, it's embarrassing. I've got my images stamped onto tissue paper and cut out, and I've cut reasonably close to the outline on this one, but not dreadfully close. I have a candle, ordinary wax candle, cheap as chips. Buy them from the from the pound shop or wherever you can. Get them when they're on sale. And I have a piece of baking paper, which is big enough to go around my candle and leave me some space to grip. And also off to the side here I have my heat tool, and I'm going to decide where on my candle I want my images, and I'm going to put them down face up, just like this. And if I wanted to, I could put a little bit of snail or something just to hold them, but I'm happy with that. So now I am going to carefully put the baking parchment on top, and now I'm going to grip. Alright, you with me so far? So now I've got my heat tool. Okay, and I'm going to let that warm up for a second, and I'm just going to readjust this because I don't think my lighthouse is as straight as I'd like it. And, well, nobody's going to worry too much if the ship's wheel is off kilter. A wonky lighthouse is going to look odd. So now I could have simplified my life enormously by just holding one image, but I just wanted to show you. Right, okay, so now you need to look at the image through the baking parchment, because I am just going to heat it, and what is going to happen is the wax is going to melt ever so slightly, and the images are going to, the tissue paper is going to sink into the wax, and I'm watching this to see when it changes in appearance. So I'm watching, and there we go, and as soon as it goes, I'm moving on. It doesn't take very long at all. Here we go. Can you see? I'm not sure how well it is showing up on the camera, but in real life I can definitely tell. So I'm going to stop that just for a moment, because I'm burning my hands quite apart from anything else. I'm just going to let that sit. I'm just going to scrub it gently, and I'm going to remove very carefully my baking paper, and there it is. Now, if I decided that actually I didn't like that at all, I could just reheat the candle, and I could take the take the image off again. In fact, I have one of these candles that I use for demonstration purposes, and I think I've heated it and reheated it, changed the image multiple times. But there you go. Now wrap that in a nice cellophane bag, and that would be a nice gift for somebody. Here's the finished coaster, and it's all dry and all sealed and ready to be used as a coaster. If I'm going to use it to put something like, a hot cup of coffee or something on, I think I'm probably going to give it another coat of sealer just to be on the safe side. Or the other thing that I could do is that I could attach a loop of twine to the back of it and use it as a wall hanging. And again, if I'm going to do that, and if you're thinking of doing that, I would very much recommend that you use something like an epoxy adhesive, or better yet, an epoxy putty to hold your twine in place. When I first made a project similar to this, I used hot glue, and I thought, yeah, great, seemed to work really well. But what I found was that after a little while, once the glue had cooled down, because it doesn't penetrate far enough into the surface of the stone, because this is not particularly porous, then the glue would give way, and it was quite easy to pull the loop off the back of it. This is quite weighty, it's quite heavy, it's rather substantial, and if you drop that on your toe it would hurt, and if it fell on your best vase it would probably break it. So you want to be very, very sure that if you're hanging it up, you want to make very, very sure that the fastening is very safe. So that is the coaster. And the other thing I'm going to bring back the candle. And yes, you can burn this candle, you can set fire to it. This particular one has got a fairly skinny wick, and I used to make candles a long time ago, and one of the things that I learned when I was making candles was that you have to have the right size wick for the diameter of your candle, otherwise it won't burn properly. Because when you burn a candle, what is happening is the wax is melting, it's drawn up by the wick, and what is actually burning is the wax that's in the wick, not the wick itself. So if the wick can't absorb enough of the melted wax, then your candle's not going to burn properly, and that is why you get a candle where the flame kind of disappears down inside the middle of the candle, and it's not the quality of the wax at all. It is all because the wick is too skinny. Now this is quite a skinny wick, so I think this is going to be one of those candles that burns that way, so that you will get a wall of wax around the outside, and the flame will go down inside, and after a while it just becomes pretty much unusable. If that's the case, then the flame isn't going to go anywhere near the tissue paper on the front here. If it's the other sort of candle that you use, then you do need to keep an eye on it, and either, if you can, get the tissue paper off it as it releases, but watch it very, very carefully, because if a flame gets to it, that tissue paper will just flare up and burn, which if it was unattended, that could be nasty. But they always tell you, don't they, don't leave a burning candle unattended. So that's my project for today, and I do hope that you've enjoyed watching it. In the near future, not promising, but I may make some boxes to keep these in. What do you think? Do you think that would be a good idea? In any case, I hope you've enjoyed this, and if so, please do give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. If you really liked it, then subscribe to my channel. I would love to have your company on a regular basis, and I do post videos on usually it's Tuesday, Thursday and a Saturday, so if you can come and join me on any of those days, and I'm going to be here. And if you want to find out more about my blog, my Facebook page, my online shop, the details are underneath this video. But for now, thank you very, very much for joining me, and I hope that I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.